episodes.
You like making noise while you're looking for shit. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, that's the goal. um, yeah, so we were just talking about it, but did you hear about that guy? Shit, I forget his name. But it was in North Carolina. A guy who got pulled over for a DUI, swore up and down that he didn't drink anything, but still got the DUI.
I heard about it about 2 minutes ago when you were asking me if I heard about it.
So what was happening was his body was converting the pizza he just ate into alcohol, making him appear, drunk and act drunk. He felt drunk, but he hadn't drank at all. So after a couple of
I've
years
heard of other cases like that too,
yeah,
where like carbohydrates or whatever would turn to alcohol in people's stomachs.
yeah, exactly. And it's rarely diagnosed. A handful of reported cases in recent years, but yeah. So through a couple of years of appeals for this thing, and nobody would believe him. And finally, not even doctors. Like he went to the doctor. The doctors thought he was drunk. So they put him on a treatment that worked for a little bit, but then like he had this fungus growing in his gut that would do this. It just grew back. I guess now he's doing fine. They've treated him with antifungals and stuff, but yeah.
Did he get some boom tough actin tenactin or what?
Gut tenactin? Maybe. I have no idea what brand it was.
You don't remember those? The old John Madden commercials?
No, I do
for the athlete's foot shit?
Ah.
Yeah. Boom, tough actin tenactin.
Wait, let's hear some John Madden again.
No, that was your one and only.
See, what you need in football is a ball.
Is that John Madden?
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, I'm doing an impression of Family Guy's impression or American Dad's impression of him or whatever.
Who was the was it Mad TV or SNL that used to do a good John Madden? Who the fuck was that? I think it was Mad TV
with Will Sasso.
Yeah, it was Will Sasso, so it had to
good.
be Mad TV. Will Sasso was good.
That guy needs to work more. I really enjoy him. He's always
Last
funny.
thing I remember seeing him on was How I Met Your Mother. He's the bartender on there. Was the bartender on there.
Yeah. Slurp. I heard a lot of slurps in the last episode, too.
Yeah, you drink noisy as fuck. It's those big lips that people are commenting about.
That one person commented about, yeah. Thanks, Jennifer.
Is that racist?
It is now.
Because I asked.
Yeah. I was going to let it go and just let it go, but no, yeah. Don't say that to your other friends. just me and the listeners. We can know.
You better tuck that lip in. You're going to get it caught on a tripwire. Bubba.
I got gumbo shrimp, barbecue shrimp, corn shrimp. That's my Bubba Gump impression.
It's better than your John Madden, I guess.
You got 2 impressions in 5 minutes. Go, you guys.
Less than, yeah.
Yeah, in less than 5 minutes, yeah. So
we got an awful lot to cover today.
We do. We both have a ton of research, don't we? What are we talking about?
Today we are talking about Edgar Allan Poe.
But before we tell people it's Edgar Allan Poe, who was telling them?
Oh, did you want to introduce ourselves like from the get-go this time instead of 10 minutes in?
No, I think we just now introduced ourselves right after we
okay.
we did the topic, so we'll just let it go here.
So this is the Higher Minds Podcast.
Higher Minds Podcast.
I'm Scott.
I'm Papa Darby. Ah, God damn it! We always fuck that up every single time. I always have to separate it in post-edit.
What?
We always say our names on top of each other. Like, almost every single episode. What are we on now? We're on 30...
Like 35, 36, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Almost every single one, we say our names on top of each other. It doesn't sound like that because I edit it.
It's because of the video delay.
There's no video delay. I'm seeing you as I'm... I don't think there is. Is there?
There's got to be a little bit of delay. anyway.
Maybe.
It's got to go from your phone to fucking cell phone towers and shit to my phone.
Yeah. Anyway, so Edgar motherfucking Allan Poe. He was...
I don't think he was a motherfucker, but he was a cousin fucker, so...
Oh, he was a child fucker. This guy... I mean, this guy deserved to be lynched before he wrote The Raven. Like, yeah. I love his work. His work is mwah, perfection. But, yeah, this guy... Fuck this dude. I don't like this guy.
He had her mother's consent and everything, too. He took care of the both of them.
That changes nothing for me.
Okay. We'll be back after a short conversation between Darby and his baby mama. So, until then, just sit tight, people. Let's take a dab while we're waiting on Darby. So today I am dabbing some Samoa glue sugar. It's a indica for a change with 72.61% THC.
So yeah, this guy fucking...
Whoa, back up a second.
What?
How's the baby mama?
Oh, are we going to address that? Okay.
I was talking to the listeners while you were gone for a minute. We had a dab together. We were talking a little bit of shit.
Okay. I can't wait to hear that. Fine. We're talking about the flight tomorrow, which
okay.
The listeners will hear this after all that happens. This comes out after I have the trip, but yeah, my daughter and I, as of this listening, or as of this post, just came back from a trip to the Stanley Hotel. It was really fun. I hope we got a lot of great pictures and recordings. I hope we saw a ghost. That would be great.
I like that you're talking presently in past tense.
Yes.
It'll make sense to the listeners, but it made no sense to me.
No. It's fourth dimensional. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
We're call back to that.
We should do a episode on the Stanley at some point in the future.
Yeah, I wonder. We could probably get
the Stanley and the Shining into one episode. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, back on topic here.
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe. So, another callback to our just last episode. If there is any more evidence of celebrity reincarnation, more than Stephen King being the reincarnated Edgar Allan Poe, I haven't seen it. Like,
that is a slap in the face to Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. The shit that Stephen King comes up with, it's directly in line with the shit that Poe came up with. But you're one of those originalists that if it came first, it's better automatically. Yeah. No, that's not true. No, that's not. I reject that.
You're allowed to be wrong. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, but so I'll start from the beginning, yeah?
Yeah, it's a good spot to start is the beginning.
So Edgar was born to actors in Boston on January 19th in 1809. His parents' names were Elizabeth Arnold Hopkins Poe and David Poe Jr. So it's thought that he was named Edgar after the Earl of Gloucester's illegitimate son and heir, who was King Lear's godson. His parents were performing King Lear when he was born. He had an older brother named William Henry Leonard and a younger sister named Rosalie. His father abandoned them in 1810, and his mother died within a year of that from consumption, which is now known as pulmonary tuberculosis.
Right.
Though never formally adopted, Poe was taken in by a wealthy local merchant named John Allan in Richmond, Virginia. This was the type of family that had a name for their house. This two-story brick home is named Moldavia, which kind of sounds like the area from which Vlad Tepes came from. Another callback. Hey. Anyway, this is when and from whom he obtained the name Allan. So before this, he was just Edgar Poe.
Right. Yeah, Allan came from the adopted family.
Yeah. So John Allan's business ventures included tobacco, textiles, wheat, tombstones, and slaves. So what the fuck? Fuck that shit. As a child, Poe was highly spoiled but strictly disciplined. Between the years of 1815 and 1817 to about 1820, that's a 3-year span, yeah, but my details were kind of murky on that. So for about 5 years, between 6 to 11, he spent time in Europe, in European boarding schools being educated. One such school was called Reverend John Bransby's Manor House School. I can't confirm nor deny, nor can I confirm that I can deny, but during this time, knowing this religion, that house name, not to mention that Eddie was one of those kids who could have been thought of as nothing more than prey by these guys, and considering his orphan status, this house seems super boy rapey.
Go.
Basically, I'm thinking that he was one of those kids that could have been thought of as, easily manipulated. He went to a religious boarding school with a lot of other boys around the age that boys get raped from religious schools, and it just seems, trajectory of his life kind of seems like he might have been abused at this time.
So you're wanting to throw in rape into this? Is that what I'm getting?
I'm inferring it. Yes. Well, they're already. I'm not throwing in
any evidence at all that supports this.
No, none at all. It's just none that I found. It's just my own hypothesis. But no, there is definitely rape in here. It's just not necessarily him being raped, but maybe. So in 1820, Poe moved back to Richmond. In 1826, at the age of 17, Poe became engaged to Sarah Elmira Royster, and then registered at the University of Virginia, where the reincarnation lab is now held. Pretty cool.
The same one as last week.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Everything's coming together.
Right. So he registered at UVA. He studied ancient and modern languages. The school he went to had strict rules about gambling, horses, tobacco, guns, and alcohol, all of which Ed is reported to have ignored. As such, right? I mean, he was fucking 17.
Mm-hmm.
As such, what happened is that he accumulated a lot of debt. The reason seems to be disputed. He says, or at the time said, that his foster father didn't send him enough money to pay for his school plus supplies. Other reports were that he got into trouble drinking and gambling. It's my opinion that he was probably a spoiled, entitled, lucky, bratty 17-year-old who got himself into trouble, because I know that's the way I rolled.
Spoiled, entitled, and lucky when your father leaves you and your mother dies.
And he could have been in a lot worse situation. He got taken in by luckily he got taken in by a very wealthy family who did care for him enough to send him to school. And at the time, everybody died. I mean, death within family was not uncommon. So it was culturally accepted. It wasn't as traumatic as it is now.
And his brother and sister didn't come with him.
No.
His brother went to his grandparents and his sister went to another family, right. I believe.
And he was one. So, I mean, I doubt he remembers his family at all at this point.
That's true, yeah.
So, but anyway, this subsequently led him to him losing touch with his fiancee and dropping out of school a year later. When he dropped out of school, he decided not to return to Richmond, as he was having a beef with his father, and Royster had married a one Alexander Shelton, who is some other blowhard. I didn't look him up. In 1827, he traveled to Boston in April and started doing odd jobs for newspapers. He took on the name Henri Le René. This looks like Henry.
Was that his pen name?
Yeah. Looks like Henry Le Renet, but in French. Yeah. Anyway, so not able to support himself on this job, he enlisted in the army a month later under the name Edgar Perry. He claimed that he was 22 at the time, and in that year he released his first book called Tamerlane and Her Poems. The byline was read by a Bostonian.
Right. Yeah, this is the first time that Poe's work had been published up at this point. And it wasn't even accredited to him. It was just written anonymously as the Bostonian, a Bostonian.
So it was just a book of poetry. Yeah. And it had poems such as Dreams, Visits of the Dead, and Tamerlane. None of which I read. I don't know. I'm not familiar with any of those. But it didn't do too well. I didn't write this part down, but it didn't do too well. It sold like 50 copies and got like no attention until his death.
Right.
So
that seems to be the case with a lot of his work. Like, he was known within his day, but he didn't hit extreme popularity until well after his death.
Or actually right before is what I got. Like the last couple of years.
Well, yeah,
he was a household name.
Yeah, like I said, he was known within his day. People knew his name and everything. But I think he's more popular today than he ever was during his own lifetime.
And there's a reason for that too, which I'll get into. It's a super interesting reason, and it's kind of really awesome for him. So he served for 2 years and achieved the highest rank available, which was Sergeant Major for Artillery. He sought to have his enlistment end 3 years early, however. It was supposed to be a 5-year enlistment. He told his commanding officer of his intentions, who he actually was, and his circumstances. His commanding officer allowed him to be discharged under the condition that he reconcile with John Allan. So, at this point, he spends several months writing unanswered letters, letter after letter, and just not getting any response, which is writing unanswered letters are. His letters were left unanswered even as his
Thanks for clearing that
Not
up.
a problem. I'm sure it's much clearer to you now. Helpful. So his letters were left unanswered even as his foster mother was dying. So she died, and he was allowed to visit her grave the day after she was buried, whereupon John softened his stance and agreed to assist Poe with him being discharged. So part of the reason he said he was going to be discharged, whether or not this was his original intention, was that he said he wanted to seek an appointment at West Point. So he was discharged on April.
And I think the way I had read it was that his adopted father wanted him to go to West Point.
I didn't. That sounds reasonable to me. The way that, all of my research, it seems like he didn't really want to be regimented anymore, but he also didn't want to be in this. He didn't want to be enlisted anymore either. More so than he didn't want to be in this place. So this was a chance at some relief for him. Which, yeah. He probably would have agreed to anything to get his. Well, he was also in the midst of reconciliation with his foster father too. So there was probably an emotional time, and he was probably agreed to his wishes as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I think at that point he was just trying to get the hell out of the army and would do whatever his foster father said up to a point just to make that happen.
Right. Get it official and then deal with it later.
When he gets to West Point. Yeah.
Exactly. Which, lo and behold.
Yeah, what happened at West Point?
He was discharged on April 15th in 1829 at the age of 20, at which point he moved to Boston with his real widowed aunt, Maria Clem, her daughter, Virginia Eliza Clem, and his brother, Henry, also with his invalid grandmother, Elizabeth Cairns Poe. I imagine this to be kind of a weird, incestuous Charlie Bucket type situation. Like his brother and his grandmother are laying in the same bed but opposite directions, and that's all they do, like in Willy Wonka.
Please tell me there's a boat ride coming up.
Shit. Well, it's not quite a boat ride, but a walk. Yes, that fucked up boat ride does actually eventually happen. You are right. You know what? I think that maybe Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was a surreal adaptation of the biography of Poe, now that you mention it.
Have you seen the theory that Snowpiercer is the sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
That, what? Can you please explain that? What?
Have you seen Snowpiercer?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
start there.
on the train. Yeah.
Okay. Yep, exactly. A coworker just showed me a video like a week ago explaining how Snowpiercer is actually the sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And it lays it out in a way where you're kind of like, maybe, like I can see, maybe, I don't know.
Really? Does it do it well?
It does it well enough, I think.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to it.
Yes, we should post that too.
Yeah, I think it does it well enough.
Okay.
The kids in the Snowpiercer that they have to send down in the holes to work on the mechanical end of things.
Yeah.
Because human adults can't fit down in there.
Right.
That's because those were originally designed for Oompa Loompas. But all the Oompa Loompas died.
Oh, I get it now. It actually comes together right after that.
I'll send you the link when we get done here.
Yeah.
I'll post it on Facebook, and you can put it on Instagram or whatever too, I guess. But yeah, it's not a solid theory, but it's enough to make you think.
Did you ever see the movie Toys with Robin Williams?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Not a great movie. In fact, it's a horrible movie. In fact, LL Cool J is in it, and he plays like his brother or something, like real life blood brother. And yeah, black white people, it's happened before, but it's stupid. Anyway, not a great movie, but it's kind of like a sequel to Willy Wonka.
Okay. So we were at West Point.
We left West Point, or no, we're almost going to West Point. Between leaving the army and going to West Point, he moves to Boston. And with his family, and at this point, he publishes a second book, Al Araf Tamerlane and Minor Poems, in Baltimore. Sorry, he moved to Baltimore, not Boston.
And what year was this?
Oh shoot, I have that. 1929 or 1829, when he was 20.
Somehow that one didn't come up on my research. Well done, you.
Oh, thank you.
You found something he wrote that I didn't find. So
yeah, it sounds really, I don't know, kind of Arabic. But then there's also another book later on, The Grotesque and the Arabesque, which also Arabesque counts Arabic. So, Poe started at West Point on July 1st in 1830. Can you imagine? Where's West Point? It's out in Iowa?
no, that's East Coast somewhere.
West Point's East Coast? I thought it was out west.
No, everything's east.
Okay, well, that would be hot to start in, like, you know,
To the interwebs.
to the interwebs. So while he's looking that up, so he started on July 1st, 1830. At which point, and at about this time, he started fighting with John about his inheritance with regard to his new children and his new wife. His foster father had remarried. This led to
New York.
West Point's in New York? Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
I have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. It must be upstate New York.
West Point, New York. It's its own area.
Like Washington, D.C.?
From
Puerto Rico?
Wikipedia, the United States Military Academy, also known as West Point Army, Army West Point, the Academy, or simply the Point, is a 4-year federal service academy in West Point, New York. It was originally established as a fort that sits on a strategic high ground overlooking the Hudson River.
Where are you getting that information?
Wikipedia.
I kind of think that West Point named itself the Point, gave itself a nickname just to be cool. Sorry, West Point, that's not cool.
It could have been.
You can't give yourself a nickname. That's awful.
Speaking in the third person and shit.
Renaming yourself. Recording conversations with under an assumed name. It's dishonest. Anyway. So at this point, this led to Poe being disowned. So with the intention of getting court-martialed, Poe purposely stopped attending formations classes and church. Strangely, church is at least was a requirement for West Point. That's a bit fucked up. Thomas Jefferson would have been pissed. But
although, like the saying goes, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole.
Fair enough. So they teach you how to pray so you survive. Okay. You're praying with a gun. Best way for survival. With a gun in your hand. under enemy fire. Anyway,
that's actually in the Bible. If you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Being armed is very Christian.
Yes. I don't think anybody would disagree with that anymore. Well, never mind. That's a complicated subject. Christians and guns. Or arms, I should say. Anyway, as we were saying before, he worried about West Point when he got to West Point. So he intentionally got himself court-martialed. He was found guilty of gross neglect of duty and disobedience of orders and was discharged. In 1831, he traveled to New York and released a third book simply called Poems.
He did.
Sweet. So he released Poems. This book's funding was kind of a crowdsource from his friends at West Point, his fellow cadets. And in the book, it's quoted as saying, "To the U.S. Corps of Cadets, this volume is respectfully dedicated." He returned to Baltimore in 1831 with the family that he had. And his traveling there was urgent as his brother was ill. And he finally died in August of that year due to complications of alcoholism. So I'm kind of seeing a trend, a familial trend. Actors are, notoriously known for being alcoholics. His father left.
Yeah, you're gonna see a couple cases of alcoholism and a couple cases of tuberculosis in this.
Yeah,
story here,
you know where tuberculosis comes from?
What does it come from?
They when it was named, they thought that it was an illness that came from tubers, like that you get from the ground, like potatoes and stuff.
And it is not.
No, it's not. It's little microbes, I believe. Little tiny living bodies.
And little potatoes.
They can, yeah.
Okay.
So this brings us
maybe
to.
They were actually onto something.
Well, I mean, but they also live elsewhere too. They live in spit and blood.
And
but there's no songrolosis. Is there a songrolosis? That sounds like a word. That's my new band name, songrolosis.
What kind of music are you guys doing?
Blood music. I don't know what that is. It sounds more violent than I really want it to be.
Gangster rap? Would that be blood music?
That's, yep. Which one? Biggie?
Was he a blood?
I don't know.
I don't know enough about any of this.
I don't know. I believe the West was Crips, East was Bloods, but I was a fucking teenager when that shit went down. Well, I was a young teenager when that shit went down, so.
Yeah, but you were a young black teenager in Cleveland. You think you might know something about that.
I mean, I thought I knew shit about that. I mean, and I sincerely thought I did, but I don't know shit about that. I never knew shit about that. So, yeah. So this brings us to 1831.
No, that was 1831. That brings us to 1832.
Yes, I'm stoned.
In 1832, Metzger-Guggenstein.
Metzger-Guggenstein.
I am great at pronouncing things. If you haven't figure that out by now. A Tale in Imitation of the German is the subtitle to it.
The Tale and Imitation of the German?
Yes.
It's like a case
This
study.
was the first short story by Edgar Allan Poe to see print. It was first published in the pages of Philadelphia Saturday Courier magazine in 1832. The story follows young Frederick, the last of the Metzgergenstein family, who carries a long-standing feud with the Berliftzing family.
The Metzgergenstein, the Berschling family. Okay, good. I like that.
I can barely read English sometimes. Metzgergenstein.
You gotta say it angry.
Many can.
If you're gonna fuck it up, say it angry. Metzgergenstein.
Yeah, that. It follows many conventions of Gothic fiction, and to some exaggerates those conventions. Consequently, critics and scholars debate on whether Poe did it seriously or if it was meant to be taken as a satire of Gothic stories. They can't tell if it's so bad on purpose or if he was doing a commentary on writing at the time.
Have you ever read them yourself?
Have I what?
Have you read it yourself?
I have a book of everything he published, supposedly, so I probably read it a good 10, 15 years ago, but I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, I don't think I've read that one either, so...
Some of the elements introduced in this work would become common in Poe's future writing, including the gloomy castle and power of evil. Because the story follows an orphan raised in an aristocratic household, some critics suggest it might have a autobiographical connection with Poe as well.
Write what you know.
I mean, that's usually how people start, right?
I think. I don't know. I'm not a writer. Well, I'm a writer of technical documents, and yeah. So I don't know.
Well, do you know technical things?
Yeah.
There you go. Right, what you know.
It's hard. It would be hard to suss out whether or not that was a serious work or not. However, during this time, he was trying to become a more serious author, a more serious writer. In fact, after his brother's death, he was one of the first writers to learn a living solely by writing.
Right. Not a good living, but he survived solely on being a writer.
Right. Yeah, no, he was destitute for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Yeah, like we said earlier, he was known in his day by other people, but he was one of like a famous poor person, kind of.
Yeah. Like,
or a poor famous person. I don't know what direction you would want to put that, but
I know you don't watch SNL now.
People knew his work and his everything, but he wasn't making a whole lot of money doing it.
Yeah. I know you don't watch SNL now. But there is, I like it. It did go through a lull, and now I think it's back. But there's a guy, oh fuck, he's been there for years. He was dating some famous chick. God damn it. Anyway, he's like a drug addict and notoriously depressed or bipolar or something like that. He's the skinny guy on there. I can't remember his name. God damn it. But was talking about this, that he just moved in with his mom. That yes, he's a famous person, but he's a broke ass famous person. Like, he's living with his mom and sister, but he's on TV.
That was Will Smith when The Fresh Prince came out. I had read he was something like $1 million in debt or some shit at that point.
He was already a household name. He was
like the main character on like a big TV show and didn't have a dime to his name. Everything he was earning was going straight into paying off debt.
Oh, okay. We should look into that. He's an interesting kid. He's one of my idols. But yeah, he was before he started Fresh Prince. I mean, it was named Fresh Prince because he was Fresh Prince. It was DJ Jazzy Jeff from the Fresh Prince. He was already a household name when that started.
Right. Yeah, he was doing music stuff then.
I have no idea what his...
Yeah, people knew who he was,
a kid,
but he didn't hit mainstream popularity until the show.
Yeah, yeah.
That show was huge.
I think before him, he was like Kid and Play and shit. Do you remember them? And House Party. They tried to. They were really. They were bigger than him, I think, at the time, like as a musical group. But Kid and Play, he was the guy with a really high top.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about.
The light skinned guy with a really high top.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was
Looked like the dude from
Kid, I think.
Tekken, but black.
Yeah. They were big, and I think they tried to duplicate Will Smith's success because then they had the movie House Party and they had like 4 sequels or some shit. And I don't know, they weren't good movies. They were like Friday before Friday. Anyway, so though there was a boom of periodicals at this time, we're talking about 1930 or 1832-ish. Many didn't make it past the first few issues. Kind of like there is a boom of podcasts right now. But we're at episode 36 now, so I feel good about that. Anyway, Poe was hampered by the lack of copyright laws. Publishers often refused to pay their writers or weasel out of it somehow, and Poe was often left humiliated and begging. Though,
Yeah, it was easy to get stuff printed, but hard to get paid for it once it was printed.
Right. And up until this point, like, this is his first year of not being rich and spoiled and entitled. So I think here it was probably healthy for him, but it's my opinion that he made it's a series of bad decisions after this that, kept him from being as monetarily successful as he could have been.
I see a lot of similarities between him and Tesla, too. Like, brilliant minds, just terrible businessmen.
Yeah. Although Tesla
also had a thing for mustaches, both of them. And birds. Tesla used to hang out with pigeons.
He was in love with a pigeon. Like, he declared love for a pigeon.
Edgar Allan Poe obviously wrote The Raven.
Yeah.
So.
Tesla though he was a bad businessman, but he wasn't always poor. Sometimes he was pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
In fact, he died broke, but he was like, it was a down curve. Like, he was living in a really fancy apartment, like, that he couldn't pay for anymore. But yeah, Tesla. We should do Tesla too sometime.
That's like the third person we've come across. We're like, we should do that.
Yeah. So as you were saying, he started paying less attention to his poetry and more on his longer works. And doing so, he caught the attention of a John P. Kennedy. I didn't have enough. I was writing right up until we started recording, pretty much, and so I didn't have enough time to see if this Kennedy was the same as the president. So I don't know. Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. Not sure. But he was a successful writer.
Do you know what brought him to Kennedy's attention, though?
Not specifically. Do you?
I do.
What's that?
The Baltimore Saturday Visitor awarded him a prize of $50, which is about $1,400 today, in October of 1883 for his short story, MS Found in a Bottle. That story is what brought him to the attention of John P. Kennedy, a wealthy Baltimorean. Is that what people from Baltimore are called? We're going with Baltimorean.
I have successful writer and statesman of his time.
Okay. I just had that he was wealthy.
Do you have more in the story or anything?
From Kennedy, Kennedy helped Poe place some of his stories in different magazines and publications, and introduced him to Thomas W. White, editor of Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond, Virginia. Poe bounced around a lot from Richmond to Baltimore to New York. Philadelphia, I think he spent some time in. Like, he was all over that Northeast for a while. And
slightly less than 200 years ago, that'd be a lot more difficult than it is now to get around.
Well, this is like right at the beginning of like steam engines and shit too, trains and paddle boats. So it's getting easier, but it's still not as easy as it is today.
Yeah, days as opposed to hours.
Right. Poe became assistant editor of the periodical in August of 35, but was fired just a few weeks later for being drunk on the job.
After he got fired, he returned to Baltimore and acquired a marriage license to marry his 13-year-old cousin. He was 26. I don't like that at all. I have a big old problem with that. So at this point,
the age part or the cousin part, or both?
more the age part, but the cousin part, that bugs me more gross, not as more of a violation. You know what I mean? Like a same age cousin can consent. A child cannot consent. And I mean, this is a 13-year-old.
Yeah. Jerry Lee Lewis did that too.
I know.
He married a cousin that I think was way younger than him too.
I think 13, yeah.
Was it 13 again?
Yeah. Weird. So, Poe, Jerry Lee Lewis, Stephen King. Okay. Well, Stephen King, I don't think he married anybody 13 or his cousin, but reincarnation.
But he looks like a guy that would diddle a kid. So,
yeah, he does, and I don't want to hold that against him because he's a brilliant writer. I love his work, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, he does have a creeper vibe to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't King a big alcoholic too?
I don't know that.
It seems like he was a drunk there for a while.
He was friends with Fear and Loathing. What the fuck's that guy's name?
Oh, what the fuck is his name?
So I'm sure King partied. He grew up here. He lived through the 70s. And he was a celebrity then. I'm sure he partied.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he looks the way he does. Maybe he was a normal guy before that. Kids, that's what Quaaludes will do to you.
He drank himself into creeperdom.
You ever do a Quaalude?
I have not.
I haven't either. I don't even know what the fucking does. Like, where do you even get Quaaludes? Can you get a Quaalude anymore? Do they make them? I know these are I know these are questions that you don't know. These are questions that you ask the universe.
If you know where to get Quaaludes, send Darby a message.
Don't do that.
HigherMindsPodcast@gmail.com.
No, don't do that. I don't want to fucking know. Don't talk to me.
Make sure you title it Attention Papa Darby.
No, don't do that. Fucking keep it to yourself. I don't care that much.
Or maybe if you just run into him somewhere and just slip it to him. Don't let him know.
Oh, man. At the
let
airport.
him wake up the next morning going, what the fuck was that?
Did I just get Cosby'd? Yeah. Yeah.
So he married his cousin.
So, yeah. He married his cousin. Virginia, she first acted as his courier to carry letters to Poe's lady loves, but soon became the object of his perverse pedophilic desires.
Well, that's a meet cute story if I've ever heard one.
It is. I mean, he met her when he was 13 and she came out of her mother.
When did they meet? Do you know? Did they know each other when he was a kid?
I could not ascertain.
Or was this later on in life?
I couldn't ascertain that. I know it was...
Because the way I understood it, it seemed like it was later on. Like he met her around the age of 13.
I think by around the age of 13, it's more like 9. So I think a few years before 13, but old enough or young enough that she was clearly a child.
Maybe she was a early developer.
That doesn't change anything.
We should note that he was taking care of his mother-in-law and his cousin wife. So, like, not all bad guy. Like, was supporting her and her mother.
Well, and...
creepy, but not a bad guy.
Arguably one of the most brilliant writers ever. So, I mean, yes, he did produce some good, but that's about half. For me, it's half and half. Is it half and half? I don't know where it is. I'm not gonna go on record saying where it is. But yeah.
I think you just did.
I did not. I retract. I'm allowed to do that, right? Nobody heard this. 40 people.
I mean, it all depends on if you edit it out.
I'm not gonna edit that shit out. So, and he returns to after being married, he returns to Mr. White.
Yeah, he talked him into giving him his job back, promising good behavior. He remained with the messenger until January of 1837. During this period, Poe claimed that its circulation increased from just 700 to 3,500 subscriptions. So he grew the shit out of this company while he was working there for those 2 years, it looks like.
Yeah, 7 times the no, 6 times the. No, I'm not even doing that right. 5 times. Grew at 500%.
Is that your final answer?
That is my final answer. 500%.
Prior to him leaving, Poe had written The Politician in 1935. This is the only play known to have been written by Edgar Allan Poe. It was never finished, however. It's a fictionalized version of the murder of Solomon P. Sharp by Jeroboam O. Beauchamp, maybe, in 1825.
Beauchamp.
The so-called Kentucky Tragedy. Poe, however, chose to set his version in 16th century Rome. The first installment of Politician was published in the Journal in December in 1835 as Scenes from an Unpublished Drama. A second installment was issued in January of 1836, but the play was never completed. Its failure prompted Poe to stop writing longer works and instead focus on short stories. So the failure of that play kind of shaped Poe into what we would know him for with the short stories. He believed that a short story should be easily read in one sitting, and that every word should further the plot in some way.
And he did it brilliantly. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely take a writing class from him. He knows what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah. He was one of the first American authors to focus on short story writing, too.
Yeah?
A lot of other people around this time were doing novels and longer form writing.
I know that he did, I wrote a lot of short stories in high school, but I think they were mostly 20th century, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But can you imagine some of the fucking movies he could have written? And I was thinking,
Given that technology, he would have been an amazing filmmaker.
I mean, technology. You mean today's technology?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
fuck
absolutely.
yeah. Oh.
Yeah, if you could put his brain into somebody modern, it'd be amazing to see what they could come up with.
Who would you have direct him? I can think of two.
Tim Burton.
Yep, that's one.
I might go John Carpenter for
Oh, that's not bad.
option 2.
Yeah. I was thinking Guillermo del
Especially
Toro.
his more macabre stuff, the Pit and the Pendulum and Murders of the Rue Morgue and shit like that. Like, I'd want to see those 1980s John Carpenter bloodied the fuck up.
Are you familiar with Guillermo del Toro?
I've heard the name. What has he done?
Pan's Labyrinth. He just did Hellboy, the latest Hellboy.
Yeah.
He's got a specific style, but he's really gruesome. He's really like, his detail is exquisitely disgusting. It's very cool.
Oh, I'm spacing on a name. Who did 2001 Space Odyssey and The Shining and...
Is that Ridley Scott?
No, Ridley Scott did Alien, I think.
Okay.
Who the fuck did that? To the interwebs.
To the interwebs. We should have music for that. To the interwebs music. Hey, if anybody wants to produce some To the interwebs. Stanley Kubrick. Clockwork Orange and that shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have done good too.
You know what? I'm going to give him my number 2. I'm going to go Tim Burton, then Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, see, mine is Guillermo and then Tim. 1 and 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Tim Burton style and Edgar Allan Poe style would overlap perfectly.
Did Tim Burton do The Crow? That wasn't Tim Burton, was it?
No, that wasn't
Okay.
Tim Burton. No.
I love Tim Burton, and I love his movies. I love his scenery. He's just a little.
His early stuff.
He's just a little cartoony with everything. If he could like tighten that up and adult that up, he would be perfect for Poe, in my opinion. And that's why I like Guillermo better. or for that application.
Yeah,
Not
he's
better,
definitely good too. Yeah,
but just for that application.
yeah. I think Burton hits that gothic aesthetic better.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I could see Jack Skellington reciting Edgar Allan Poe.
I guess fucking Beetlejuice was Burton, right? Yeah, Beetlejuice was Burton. I'm thinking more Edward
Yeah.
Scissorhands though.
Okay.
Like, see, even Beetlejuice was a little
good.
cartoony, but I think Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands is a lot deeper than a lot of people give it credit for too. There's a
I haven't seen it in
whole
years.
sub narrative of judging a book by its cover, racism and shit like that. If you pay attention, the only person who's on Edward's side in that whole film, other than his family obviously, is the black cop. And he's the only black person in the whole film.
I don't remember that either. I haven't seen it in years.
Edward Scissorhands is a lot deeper than people realize, I think.
Probably, I think he tried to recapture that in Big Fish, but I don't know. Big Fish was, it was okay.
I really liked Big Fish.
I liked it. It was great. I mean, it's above a lot of movies. I think it was me being an asshole. I think it was trying for that deeper message a little too hard. I think it hit it a little too hard.
Yeah, it wasn't as subtle as it could have been, I guess.
Right. And I don't know, that's probably due to the modern moviegoers aren't as sophisticated as others or as older ones. Just because we have more technology
people don't
now.
want to think when they go watch a movie. They just want to sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and be entertained.
And honestly, I'm guilty of that too. I love Marvel shit. I want to see superpowered people fighting each other. If I want to think about something, I do my podcast.
See, and I go the other route where, like, I'm not afraid of finding spoilers out for movies and shit before I go see them. So I'll watch, like The Joker, for instance. I know how it ends. I know the whole story. Because I've sat down and I've watched synopsises of it. And, like, people explaining the different quirks and shit within the movie.
Yeah.
I think watching it after knowing those things, you have a better appreciation for the filmmaker.
Something like Joker, yeah. Yeah. Now, if I would... So, another excellent movie, but a Marvel... It's not technically a Marvel movie, but it's from the Marvel Universe. Logan. You've seen Logan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great fucking movie. Like, everything about that movie, even outside of the superpowers, is fucking excellent. If I'd have seen spoilers for that, though, I'm kind of pissed.
See, and I just assume I probably saw spoilers for that before I'd seen the movie.
Oh.
I do that a lot.
Oh. So, yeah.
I'm 50-50 on watching films for entertainment versus watching films for, like, to know how they did shit, I guess. I watch a film as much for the filmmaker as I do for the film itself.
I don't.
Okay.
I like big budget CG fighting scenes.
And I hate CG. I'd much rather practical effects.
Nah, if it looks real.
Look at John Carpenter's The Thing versus The Thing that came out in like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, you suggested that before. I still haven't. But I have been seeing Carpenter's Thing
awful.
like everywhere. Like ever since you mentioned it,
Mm-hmm.
It's streaming on, I think, a few platforms.
Is it really?
I think so.
Because I fucking bought it because I couldn't find it to stream anywhere.
Oh, no shit. That sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't find it on anything that I had for free, at least. I could pay for it on Amazon or whatever, but...
Maybe it started streaming.
So I jumped on Amazon, I found the Blu-ray for like $8 or something like that.
Bad.
I'm like, yep, that'll do.
I think it's probably streaming now because it's Halloween.
Well, it was October... Well, it's still October, but that's what I was wanting to watch it for, was leading up to the horror movie
Right.
episode. And I couldn't find it to stream anywhere.
Okay. Sorry, that sucks.
We are way off
We really
topic.
are and have been for a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
While he was in under White's employ, he became a champion of higher wages for writers and international copyright law, which Xi Jinping now doesn't believe should exist.
Who?
Xi Jinping is the leader of China.
Oh, Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the fucking Pooh.
Okay.
Should wear pants more. So he remained there until 1837, during which time he published several poems, reviews, critiques, and stories. He was well known for his skills as a reviewer. He was known for being particularly vicious and accurate. He often went after well-known and respected writers of his time. One of his victims...
At this point in his life, he was better known as a critic than he was an author himself.
Yes, yeah, and he was widely read because of it, because
Right.
he was a great critic. One of his victims, who will return later, it's kind of cool, was anthologist and editor named Rufus Griswold. Did you read about him at all?
It seems like I read the name. I didn't dig into it, though. Because I thought
Okay.
Rufus was a fucking cool-ass name.
Rufus Griswold? Yeah, he sounds like a fucking magician, doesn't he?
Something, yeah.
And he kind of was. He did provide some magic, and I'll get to that. So it was this man who would later write a critical obituary, which would unintentionally help shape the legend of the drunken vagabond Edgar Allan Poe. In 1836, slightly before, he officially married Virginia, and they would be married for 11 years. Between 1837 and 1840, he worked for a few different magazines, editing and publishing more stories, and short and otherwise. In 1842, he sought a political assignment for the Whig Party. On the night that he was supposed to have a meeting about the appointment, he missed the meeting, claiming to be sick. Robert Tyler, the son of President Tyler, and the man with whom he had the meeting, believed that he was drunk. That same year, Virginia showed the first signs of consumption, while singing and playing the piano, which Poe described as breaking a blood vessel in her throat. From this, she never fully recovered. After that, he worked at a few more magazines and publicly accused Henry Wadsworth Longfellow of plagiarism. Longfellow never responded. This and other antics alienated from other writers.
And I had read that plagiarism was pretty common at this point, too, because of lack of copyright laws.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people were doing it, Poe not being one of them, supposedly. But he had a history of calling out people as a critic, and just like you had mentioned, too, just calling them out in public.
Right. And that's another reason that he was so famous, is because these people were doing, these were wrongdoers, and he was calling out the wrongdoing.
Exactly.
But the majority of the copyright laws, though, were, what was happening was publishing houses would take another book's property, or another story, and just publish it as their own and profit off of it.
Mm-hmm.
On January 28th, 1845, Poe published his most famous work, The Raven. This instantly made Poe a household name. Guess how much he was paid for it? I'm sure you know.
I have it here somewhere.
Arguably the most famous poem ever.
$9.
$9
was paid.
motherfucking dollars. Wait a 9.
This is 1845 money, but that's still not a lot.
No, let's say it fucking quadrupled. That means that he made 9 times 4, $36. I mean, that's
Well, $50 prize was like the equivalent of $1,400 today or something like that. So
he got way underpaid for The Raven. Is basically it.
absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
So in 1846, he and Virginia moved to Fordham, New York, now known as the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage, where Virginia died on January 30th, 1847. Though it was published posthumously, it is believed that Annabel Lee is about her death. And
if you read it pretty clearly lines up with the death of his wife.
yeah. And this is where we're going to end episode 1. Following this will be a reading by me, Papa Darby, of Annabel Lee.
Yeah. That seems like a good stopping point. Next episode, we're going to get a little more into his writing and then cover the end of Poe's life.
Yeah, he didn't live much after this.
No, he lasted, I think, like 2 years after his wife died.
Yeah. But his story really gets good after he died anyway.
Yeah, it's very fitting, I think.
It is. As morbid and dark and gothic as he was, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I do want to point out, you had said about the alcoholism earlier. I had read something. A lot of people think he was just a lightweight. There's reports of him having one drink and getting drunk off of it, basically. So it's not like he was wasting the family's money on booze. It was easy for him to get
maybe drunk. He had a fungus in his gut that was converting his pizza into alcohol.
Maybe. That might be exactly what it was.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
They say it was a mystery. Now we fucking know. You're welcome, society.
Yeah, his mother and his wife both died of tuberculosis, both at the age of 24.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. So we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah. Enjoy Papa Darby reading Annabelle Lee, and we'll be back next week with part 2 of Edgar Allan Poe.
So yeah, we're going to wrap this up. If you want to listen to this, where do you listen to us?
You can find us on SoundCloud.
On SoundCloud.
On Stitcher. On iTunes. On YouTube. And where can you interact with us at?
We can be talked at on Instagram. On Facebook. And just so you guys know, we're supposed to run on Twitter, but I don't know about that. Maybe we'll be on Twitter. But again, we have Katie now, and she also is helping us with our social media. She is technically our social media manager, and you can talk to her too. She's great. She posts a lot of our shit.
She does. She's doing great. You can also find us at highermindspodcast.com.
Highermindspodcast.com, that's right.
And you can email us directly at highermindspodcast@gmail.com.
And that one at gmail.com.
And don't forget to send in your Quaaludes for Papa Darby.
To
that Gmail account.
I am officially saying don't do that. I am not winking officially.
When he said not winking, he was definitely winking.
I was officially not. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's been the Higher Minds Podcast. We'll be back next week with part 2 for Edgar Allan Poe.
Yep, I'm Papa Darby.
And I'm Scott. Deuces, everybody.
Deuces. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabelle Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child, in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabelle Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew up a cloud chilling my beautiful Annabelle Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my beautiful Annabelle Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabelle Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.